Thorne Blackwell stared at the invoice on his desk, the numbers blurring together as his mind drifted to the memory of Valerie's perfume lingering on Foster's collar last Tuesday. He rubbed his temples, trying to focus on the architectural plans for the luxury resort his firm was designing in Miami. At 42, Thorne had built Blackwell Designs from nothing into one of Boston's most prestigious architectural firms, specializing in high-end hospitality projects. His phone buzzed, a text from his 12-year-old daughter, Lily. "Dad, can you pick me up from dance early? Not feeling good." As he drove to the dance studio, Thorne reflected on how his daughter had become increasingly withdrawn over the past year. Her grades had slipped and the bright spark in her eyes had dimmed. He attributed it to typical preteen angst, but deep down he suspected it had more to do with the escalating tension between him and Valerie. 15 years of marriage had devolved into polite exchanges and separate bedrooms. Valerie, once his college sweetheart and biggest supporter, had transformed into a stranger who seemed perpetually disappointed in him. Her career as a gallery curator had taken off just as his own business demanded more of his time. "Hey, Lily Pad," he said as his daughter climbed into the car, her face pale. "What's wrong?" "Just a stomachache," she mumbled, staring out the window. "Mom said she's staying late at the gallery again tonight." Thorne nodded, swallowing the bitter taste of suspicion that had become all too familiar. Valerie's late nights had multiplied over the past 6 months, coinciding with the return of his younger brother, Perry, from his international photography assignments. Perry had always been the family's golden child, charming, carefree, and their father's obvious favorite. While Thorne built a business through relentless work and discipline, Perry traveled the world capturing breathtaking images and living a bohemian lifestyle that their father, Dominic Blackwell, inexplicably admired more than Thorne's steadfast success. When Perry announced his plan to settle back in Boston, Thorne had offered his brother a position photographing Blackwell Designs' completed projects. It seemed the perfect solution, giving Perry stability while adding value to the firm. What Thorne had not counted on was how quickly Perry and Valerie would reconnect. They had known each other in college before Thorne and Valerie began dating, a fact that Perry occasionally mentioned with a wistful smile that made Thorne uneasy. At home, Thorne made soup for Lily while she curled up on the couch watching a movie. His phone rang. It was his father. "Thorne, just confirming you rehandling the renovation plans for the boathouse," Dominic said. Perry mentioned he had some innovative ideas for the space. Thorne gripped the phone tighter. The boathouse renovation was a pet project for Dominic's 80th birthday celebration next month. Of course, Perry had swooped in with creative ideas after Thorne had already spent weeks on the preliminary designs. "I've got it under control, Dad," Thorne said evenly. "The plans will be ready for review next week." Good. "And you coming to dinner Sunday?" Perry's bringing that new exhibition proposal for Valerie's gallery. Brilliant concept, merging architecture and natural landscapes. Another collaboration between his wife and brother that he was apparently not privy to. "We'll be there," Thorne said before hanging up. As he watched Lily doze off on the couch, a notification pinged on his tablet, an email accidentally sent to his address instead of Perry's. It was from Valerie, containing only an address, a time, and the message, "Ca not wait to see you alone. V." Thorne stared at the screen, the familiar burn of betrayal settling in his chest, hardening into something cold and resolute. He'd been suspecting for months, but now he had proof. His wife and his brother. The two people he should have been able to trust most in the world. He did not confront Valerie when she came home at midnight, smelling of expensive wine and wearing a guilty smile. Instead, he began to plan. Thorne Blackwell had built his career on attention to detail, patience, and strategic thinking. Now he would apply those same skills to dismantling the betrayal that threatened to destroy everything he'd worked for. The following weeks became an exercise in controlled rage for Thorne. By day he was the consummate professional, overseeing projects, meeting with clients, and maintaining the facade of a successful businessman and family man. By night, he meticulously gathered evidence and formulated a strategy that would ensure neither Valerie nor Perry would emerge unscathed. He hired Ren Sullivan, a private investigator recommended by his longtime friend and lawyer, Maddox Reed. Ran was as efficient as she was discreet, providing Thorne with detailed reports, photographs, and even recordings that confirmed his suspicions beyond any doubt. Valerie and Perry were not just having an affair, they were planning a future together. One that involved Perry's upcoming photography exhibition at Valerie's gallery, which would launch his career in the fine art world and cement her reputation as a visionary curator. They've been careful, Ren explained during one of their meetings in an out-of-the-way diner, meeting in a rental property rather than hotels, using separate vehicles. But they were getting bolder. Last week, they were spotted having dinner at Missy Hust. Missy Hust was one of Boston's most exclusive restaurants, owned by reclusive business magnate Silas Missy Hust. It was also a mere 3 blocks from Blackwell Design's office. They were either getting careless or they simply do not care anymore, Thorne said, his voice devoid of emotion as he examined the photographs. There's something else, Ren hesitated. Your brother has been meeting with developers from Monarch Group. Thorne's head snapped up. Monarch Group was Blackwell Design's biggest competitor, and they'd been aggressively pursuing the Miami resort project that could make or break Thorne's firm. You think he's selling information? Ren shrugged. I see not confirm that, but the timing is suspicious. The meeting started right after you shared the preliminary Miami designs with your team. Thorne thanked her and paid her invoice in cash, adding a generous bonus. That night, he accessed Perry's work computer remotely, a precaution he implemented after noticing discrepancies in some project files. What he found made his blood run cold. Perry had been systematically copying Blackwell Design's proprietary plans, client lists, and financial data. The betrayal went beyond the personal. Perry was not just seeing Thorne's wife, he was actively undermining Thorne's business. The legacy he built from nothing while Perry was gallivanting around the world. At home, Lily's condition worsened. Now she was refusing to go to school altogether, claiming persistent stomach aches and headaches. The school counselor suggested family therapy, which Valerie dismissed as unnecessary. She's just being dramatic, Valerie said dismissively after another call from the school. Your mother was the same way, always using illness to get attention. The casual cruelty of the comment, directed at both his daughter and his deceased mother, solidified something in Thorne. He'd been considering divorce, a clean break that would minimize the impact on Lily. But now he understood that Valerie deserved more than a simple dissolution of their marriage. She and Perry had conspired not just against him, but against his child and his livelihood. They would pay. But first, he needed to protect Lily. He took her to a specialist who diagnosed anxiety and recommended therapy. When Valerie objected to the expense, Thorne quietly arranged sessions with Dr. Adelaide Knox, a respected child psychologist. During one of these sessions, while waiting in the reception area, he received an unexpected call from his father. We need to discuss the family trust, Dominic said without preamble. I am making some changes before my birthday celebration. The Blackwell Family Trust, established by Thorne's grandfather, had been a point of contention for years. As the eldest son, Thorne was the primary beneficiary, with smaller portions allocated to Perry and any future grandchildren. Dominic, however, had always had the power to adjust the allocations. What kind of changes? Thorne asked, already suspecting the answer. Perry's settling down, showing real promise with this exhibition. I am adjusting the percentages to reflect his contribution to the family legacy. Thorne closed his eyes, the final piece of the puzzle clicking into place. Perry's sudden interest in settling in Boston, his convenient relationship with Valerie, his corporate scheming, it was all part of a larger plan to supplant Thorne not just in his marriage, but in the family hierarchy and business world. I see, Thorne said calmly. We'll discuss it on Sunday. As Lily emerged from her session looking marginally more relaxed than she had in months, Thorne made a decision. The original plan had been too simple, too merciful. What Perry, Valerie, and even his father had done required a more comprehensive response. He would dismantle their dreams piece by piece, just as they had tried to do to him. The Sunday dinner at his father's sprawling Beacon Hill residence unfolded exactly as Thorne had anticipated. Perry dominated the conversation, charming Dominic with tales of his travels and grand plans for his exhibition, while Valerie gazed at him with poorly disguised adoration. Lily picked at her food silently, a ghost of the vibrant child she once was. The exhibition will revolutionize how architectural spaces are perceived, Perry announced, gesturing expansively. Valerie's gallery is the perfect venue, intimate enough to create an immersive experience, but prestigious enough to attract the right collectors. It's a perfect synergy. It's true, Valerie added, not meeting Thorne's eyes. Perry's vision complements the gallery's aesthetic perfectly. Dominic nodded approvingly. This is exactly the kind of innovative thinking the Blackwell name should be associated with. Do not you agree, Thorne? Before Thorne could respond, their family attorney, Horace Watts, arrived for what Dominic described as a quick bit of business. The quick bit turned out to be Dominic's planned redistribution of the family trust, with Perry's share increasing from 20% to 45%, nearly equal to Thorne's now reduced 50%. The remaining 5% will be held in trust for Lily, Horace explained, sliding papers across the table for signatures. So generous of you, Dad, Perry said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. Thorne maintained his composure, signing where indicated, while making a mental note to call Maddox first thing in the morning. The trust adjustment was not unexpected, but it provided valuable insight into the extent of his father's preferential treatment of Perry. As coffee was served in the study, Lily whispered that she was not feeling well. Thorne used the opportunity to excuse themselves, promising to return for the boathouse review the following weekend. Take care, sweetheart, Perry said to Lily with affected concern, squeezing her shoulder as they passed. Maybe you need a vacation. I know a fantastic resort in the Maldives. Been photographing it for a potential project. The Maldives resort was one of Blackwell Design's confidential upcoming projects. Perry's casual mention of it confirmed what Thorne already knew. His brother was not only stealing his designs, but actively pursuing Thorne's potential clients. In the car, Lily finally spoke more than 2 sentences together for the first time in weeks. I heard Mom and Uncle Perry talking, she said, staring out the window. They said after the exhibition we might all need to adjust to a new normal. What does that mean, Dad? Thorne gripped the steering wheel tighter. It means some people are planning changes without considering how those changes might affect others. But do not worry, Lilypad. I'm not going to let anyone hurt you. The following morning, instead of going directly to the office, Thorne met with Maddox at his law firm. He laid out everything, the affair, Perry's corporate schemes, the trust adjustment, and his suspicions about their long-term plans. Maddox, a shark in bespoke suits, listened without interruption, taking occasional notes. When Thorne finished, he leaned back in his chair and steepled his fingers. You understand that what you re-proposing goes beyond a standard divorce and corporate espionage case, he said carefully. The level of recompense you re-seeking could have significant blowback. I'm prepared for that, Thorne replied. They've been systematically dismantling my life for months, possibly years. A simple divorce and a corporate lawsuit would not suffice. Maddox nodded slowly. Then we need to be strategic. I suggest a 3-pronged approach. Legal, financial, and social. We protect your assets and Lily's future first. Then we address the business concerns. And finally, we ensure that the social consequences fall where they belong. They spent the next 2 hours outlining the strategy. By the time Thorne left Maddox's office, he had set in motion the first phase of what would become the systematic destruction of Perry and Valerie's carefully constructed plans. That evening, Perry called to invite Thorne to be his best man at an upcoming charity event where Perry would be receiving an award for his humanitarian photography. The audacity of the request, combined with Perry's thinly veiled gloating, provided the perfect opportunity for the next phase of Thorne's plan. I'd be honored, Thorne said, his voice betraying none of the cold fury burning inside him. After all, what are brothers for? The stage was set. In 3 weeks, at the charity gala hosted by none other than Silas Mercier, Thorne would take the first public step in his campaign of retribution. By the time Perry and Valerie realized what was happening, it would already be too late to stop the avalanche Thorne was about to unleash. The 3 weeks leading up to the charity gala were a masterclass in strategic patience. Thorne moved methodically, setting up the pieces of his plan while maintaining an outward appearance of normalcy. He continued to attend meetings with clients, have stilted dinners with Valerie, and even helped Perry with preparations for his acceptance speech at the gala. No one suspected that beneath Thorne's composed exterior, every move was calculated for maximum impact. Meanwhile, Maddox executed the legal groundwork. New trusts were established for Lily, with ironclad provisions that neither Valerie nor any member of the Blackwell family could access. Thorne transferred significant personal assets into protected accounts and created a separate corporate entity to safeguard Blackwell Design's most valuable intellectual property. Wren continued her surveillance, providing Thorne with ever more damning evidence. The most valuable came in the form of recorded conversations between Perry and executives at Monarch Group, explicitly discussing the use of stolen designs from Blackwell Design. "You rebuilding quite the case," Maddox observed during one of their meetings. "But are you sure you want to wait? We have enough to move forward with both divorce proceedings and corporate espionage charges." "Timing is everything," Thorne replied. "The gala is where Boston's entire social and business elite will be gathered. It's where they've chosen to essentially debut as a couple. It's where my father will publicly pass the torch to Perry as the new face of the Blackwell legacy. It's the perfect setting for their humiliation to begin." Maddox did not look entirely convinced, but he nodded. "Your call. But remember, once we start this, there's no pulling back." "I'm counting on that," Thorne said. At home, Thorne focused on Lily. He arranged for her to spend more time with Dr. Knox and surprised her with a pottery class she'd been interested in. Slowly, he saw glimpses of his daughter returning. Small smiles, occasional laughter, and most importantly, a willingness to talk. During one of their weekend outings, Lily confessed what had been weighing on her. "Mom told me not to tell you, but she and Uncle Perry are going to live together after his exhibition. She said you're going to be really angry, and that's why my stomach always hurts. Because I know something bad is going to happen." Thorne pulled into a parking lot and turned to face his daughter. "Lily, listen to me. Whatever happens between your mom, Uncle Perry, and me is not your responsibility. You did not cause any of this, and you not fix it. But I promise you this. I will always be here for you, and I will make sure you taken care of. Can you trust me on that?" Lily nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I do not want to live with them. Uncle Perry makes Mom act weird, and he's always taking pictures of everything. He even took my diary once to document the emotional landscape of adolescence or something silly like that." Thorne's blood boiled at this new violation, but he kept his expression calm. "You would not have to do anything you do not want to do. I promise." The night before the gala, Thorne received a text from an unknown number. "Package delivered. Sem." Silas Mercier had come through with his part of the arrangement, a debt repaid from years ago when Thorne had designed Mercier's private island retreat at cost, saving the businessman millions while establishing Thorne's reputation for exceptional work. Everything was in place. As Thorne laid out his tuxedo for the following evening, Valerie entered their bedroom, looking uncharacteristically nervous. "You've been different lately," she said, hovering in the doorway. "More present. Is everything okay?" "Everything is exactly as it should be," Thorne replied with a small smile. "I've just gained some perspective on what really matters." Valerie looked relieved, interpreting his calm as ignorance. "That's good. I've been worried about you working too hard. The Miami project and Perry's exhibition happening simultaneously must be stressful." "Life has a way of clarifying priorities," Thorne said, turning back to his preparations. "By the way, I've arranged for Lily to stay with Adelaide tomorrow night after the gala. I thought we might need some adult time." The flash of panic in Valerie's eyes was brief, but unmistakable. She had planned to use the gala as the opportunity to tell Thorne about her and Perry, assuming the public setting would force him to react with restraint. "That's thoughtful," she managed. "But I have to meet some collectors at the gallery after the gala." "Rain check?" "Of course," Thorne said smoothly. "There's always next time." As Valerie retreated from the room, Thorne allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. The first cracks in their facade were appearing, and they had not even realized the extent of what was coming. The Mercier Foundation Gala was the social event of the season, held at Silas Mercier's restored historic theater in downtown Boston. The city's elite gathered in their finest, eager to see and be seen while ostensibly supporting various humanitarian causes. This year's gala honored individuals who had used their talents to highlight global issues, with Perry Blackwell receiving the prestigious Mercier Medal for his photographic series on climate refugees. Thorne arrived separately from Valerie, who had gone early to help Perry prepare for his moment in the spotlight. He navigated the crowded reception hall, accepting congratulations for his brother's achievement with gracious nods while observing the key players in his unfolding drama. His father stood near the bar, holding court with several business associates, occasionally glancing toward the stage where Perry was being photographed with previous medal recipients. Valerie fluttered nearby, radiant in a midnight blue gown that Thorne recognized as new and far more expensive than anything she'd purchased during their marriage. Thorne Blackwell, a deep voice intoned behind him. Right on schedule, Thorne turned to find Silas Mercier, the enigmatic billionaire whose name graced the event. In his 70s, Mercier retained the sharp eyes and calculating demeanor that had made him a legend in investment banking before his pivot to philanthropy. Silas, Thorne acknowledged with a slight nod. Thank you for the assistance. A debt repaid is a clean ledger, Mercier replied cryptically. Your position is prepared, the photographer has been instructed, and your special guest is waiting in the anteroom as requested. Thorne nodded again, slipping an envelope to Mercier, who pocketed it without looking. Their business concluded, Mercier moved away to greet other guests, leaving Thorne to continue his circuit of the room. As the dinner portion of the evening concluded and the awards ceremony began, Thorne took his assigned seat at the family table near the stage. Valerie pointedly sat on the opposite side, next to Dominic, who barely acknowledged Thorne's presence. The first two awards were presented with the usual polite applause and predictable acceptance speeches. Then came the main event. Silas Mercier himself took the stage to present the Mercier Medal. This year's recipient has captured the human cost of our changing world with both unflinching honesty and profound compassion, Mercier announced. His lens has become the conscience of our generation, forcing us to witness what we might otherwise ignore. Ladies and gentlemen, I present this year's Mercier Medal to Perry Blackwell. The applause was thunderous as Perry bounded onto the stage, the very picture of humble gratitude. After accepting the medal and posing for photographs, he stepped to the microphone. Thank you, Silas, for this tremendous honor. I stand before you not as an individual, but as a witness to both human suffering and resilience. Perry's speech was eloquent and moving, crafted to portray himself as both artist and humanitarian. As he reached his conclusion, he gestured toward the family table. I'd like to thank my father, Dominic, for instilling in me the courage to follow my own path. And now, I'd like to invite my brother, Thorne, to join me on stage. Though we've taken different routes in life, his support has been unwavering, and I've asked him to say a few words as my best man tonight. The audience applauded as Thorne made his way to the stage, embracing his brother with practiced affection before taking his place at the microphone. Perry stepped back, beaming with false modesty. For those who do not know me, Thorne began, I am the less photogenic Blackwell. Appreciative chuckles rippled through the audience. My brother has always had an eye for beauty, for capturing exactly what he wants. Thorne paused, his gaze sweeping the room before landing on Valerie, who shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Perry's talent lies in framing the world as he wishes it to be seen, carefully controlling what's in the picture and what remains outside the frame. It's a gift that extends beyond his photography. He turned to Perry, whose smile had faltered slightly. Tonight, however, I thought we might widen the lens a bit. Thorne gestured toward the back of the theater where a technician activated the large screen behind them. Silas has generously allowed me to share some of Perry's unpublished work. The screen illuminated with images, but not the expected humanitarian photographs. Instead, they were surveillance photos of Perry and Valerie together in intimate settings, documents showing transfers of Blackwell Design's proprietary information to Monarch Group. And finally, emails between Perry and Dominic discussing the trust redistribution and plans to ease Thorne out of his own company after the Miami project was secured by Monarch. A shocked murmur swept through the audience. Perry lunged for the microphone, but Thorne held firm. I believe in giving credit where it's due, Thorne continued, his voice carrying over the growing commotion. So let's acknowledge all the collaborators in this particular project. He pointed directly at Valerie, my wife, whose curatorial expertise apparently extends to arranging more than just artwork. Valerie stood abruptly, knocking over her wine glass as she backed away from the table. My father, Thorne continued, nodding toward Dominic, whose face had turned an alarming shade of purple, who has always believed in investing in the most promising ventures regardless of minor considerations like loyalty or integrity. He turned back to Perry, who was frantically signaling to someone offstage to cut the presentation. And of course, the artist himself, whose vision for the future conveniently required the destruction of mine. The screen changed to show banking records, transfers from Monarch Group to offshore accounts linked to Perry, coinciding with dates of known meetings. For 15 years, I built Blackwell Designs into a firm known for innovation and integrity. I designed spaces that brought people together while my own brother and wife were designing my professional and personal downfall. Thorne's voice remained steady, betraying none of the rage that had fueled him for months. Tonight, I'm simply reframing the narrative. Security personnel approached the stage, but Silas Mercier waved them back with a sharp gesture. The audience watched in stunned silence as Thorne methodically dismantled the carefully constructed public personas of his family members. But this is not just about personal betrayal, Thorne continued. It's about corporate espionage, breach of fiduciary duty, and fraud. He nodded toward a group of people who had entered from the side doors, representatives from the SEC and FBI, accompanied by Maddox. Which is why relevant authorities have been provided with comprehensive evidence of these activities. Perry finally broke his paralysis, grabbing Thorne's arm. "You've lost your mind," he hissed. "You redestroying everything over some petty jealousy." Thorne removed Perry's hand with deliberate calmness. "No, I'm simply ensuring that everyone sees the full picture." He addressed the audience once more. "I apologize for the unexpected entertainment. Please enjoy the remainder of your evening." As Thorne stepped away from the microphone, chaos erupted. Perry was surrounded by law enforcement officers. Dominic was being attended to by medical staff after collapsing in his chair, and Valerie had fled the ballroom entirely. "You missed a nice opportunity for a more subtle approach," Mercier commented as Thorne passed him on his way out. "Subtlety is overrated when the objective is crystal clear," Thorne replied. "Besides, your debt is paid. What happens now is no longer your concern." Outside the theater, Thorne found Valerie frantically trying to get a rideshare on her phone. When she saw him, she backed away, her composure completely shattered. "How long have you known?" she demanded, mascara streaking down her face. "Long enough to ensure that when I acted, it would be decisive," Thorne replied. "You should know that I filed for divorce this morning. Maddox will contact you with the details." "This is insane," Valerie sputtered. "You've just publicly humiliated me, your brother, your father, all of whom conspired to humiliate and destroy me," Thorne cut in. "The difference is I did it openly while you operated in shadows and whispers." "What about Lily?" Valerie asked, suddenly remembering their daughter. "Have you thought about what this will do to her?" "I've thought of nothing else," Thorne said, his voice finally betraying emotion. "Which is why I've ensured that she'll be protected from all of this, including you. Adelaide took her for the weekend. By Monday, the initial shock will have dissipated and we'll begin the process of explaining to our daughter why her mother would not be living with us anymore." Valerie's face contorted with anger and fear. "You see, not keep her from me. I'm her mother." "I have no intention of keeping Lily from you," Thorne said. "But given what's about to happen to both you and Perry legally, I suspect your ability to provide a stable home will be severely compromised. The courts tend to take a dim view of parents involved in federal fraud investigations." A car pulled up, not a rideshare, but a sleek black sedan. The driver's window lowered to reveal Silas Mercier. "Your ride, I believe," Thorne said, stepping back. "I suggest you use this time to consider your next moves carefully. The game has changed, Valerie, and you playing catch-up." As the sedan pulled away with a shell-shocked Valerie inside, Thorne turned back toward the theater, where flashing lights indicated the arrival of more law enforcement. The first phase of his plan had unfolded perfectly. Now came the aftermath, the systematic dismantling of everything Perry and Valerie had conspired to build on the ruins of his life. The days following the Mercier Gala unfolded with the precision of a well-orchestrated symphony, each movement building upon the last to create a crescendo of consequences for those who had betrayed Thorne. Perry was arrested on multiple charges: corporate espionage, wire fraud, conspiracy, and securities violations. His legal team, hastily assembled and outmatched by the federal prosecutors working with evidence provided by Maddox, failed to secure bail. The golden son of the Blackwell family spent his first night in a holding cell, his Mercier medal confiscated as potential evidence of ill-gotten gains. Valerie, though not immediately arrested, was named as a person of interest in the investigation. Her gallery was served with search warrants, and the prestigious collectors who had been eager to attend Perry's exhibition suddenly developed scheduling conflicts. The art world, built on reputation and connections, began its swift and merciless process of excommunication. Dominic, having suffered what was diagnosed as a stress-induced cardiac event at the gala, recuperated at Massachusetts General Hospital under the watchful eyes of both his doctors and federal agents waiting to interview him about his role in the conspiracy. Thorne moved through this chaos with calculated precision. He met with Blackwell Design's board of directors, presenting irrefutable evidence of Perry's corporate espionage and his own comprehensive plan to mitigate the damage. The board, faced with potential shareholder lawsuits and regulatory scrutiny, unanimously backed Thorne's leadership. The Miami Resort project, which Perry had attempted to divert to Monarch Group, was secured when Thorne presented the client with evidence that Monarch had been planning to use stolen designs. This revelation prompted the client to sign exclusively with Blackwell Designs while simultaneously filing suit against Monarch. For days after the gala, Thorne sat in Maddox's office reviewing the rapidly evolving situation. Monarch stock has dropped 18% since the news broke, Maddox reported, sliding a tablet across the desk. Their CEO has resigned. 3 board members have stepped down, and they facing a shareholder revolt. Your brother's activities have effectively crippled one of your main competitors. Ironic, Thorne commented. They thought they were gaining an advantage by working with Perry, but they ended up destroying themselves in the process. As for Valerie, Maddox continued, the divorce proceedings are underway. Given the circumstances and the evidence we've compiled, her attempts to claim any significant portion of your assets will be futile. The temporary custody arrangement for Lily has been approved. Valerie gets supervised visitation only until the criminal investigations are resolved. Thorne nodded, thinking of Lily, who had remained with Dr. Knox through the initial media frenzy. Adelaide had created a protective bubble around his daughter, gradually explaining the situation in age-appropriate terms while helping her process her feelings. It was not perfect, but it was better than the alternative of Lily witnessing the public implosion of her family firsthand. And my father? Thorne asked. Maddox's expression tightened. He's being difficult. Despite the evidence, he's insisting that Perry was set up, possibly by you. He's attempting to use what influence he has left to pressure the prosecutor's office. Has he adjusted the trust yet? No. Your confrontation happened before the paperwork could be fully executed. The trust remains as it was, with you as the primary beneficiary. However, given Dominic's current stance, I would not be surprised if he tries to cut you out entirely now. Thorne leaned back in his chair. He's welcome to try, but the trust has specific provisions about disinheritance based on family disputes. My grandfather was quite foresight in that regard. A knock at the door interrupted them. Maddox's assistant entered with an envelope bearing the distinctive letterhead of Mercier Enterprises. This was just delivered by courier, she said, marked urgent and personal for Mr. Blackwell. Thorne opened the envelope to find a handwritten note from Silas Mercier, along with several documents. Thorne, having witnessed your handling of family matters, I find myself with renewed confidence in your strategic capabilities. The enclosed represents an opportunity that may interest you given recent developments. The Monarch situation has created a vacancy in the market that someone of your acumen could readily fill. Consider it an investment in continued excellence. The accompanying documents outlined a proposal for Thorne to acquire controlling interest in Monarch Group at a significantly reduced valuation, backed by Mercier Capital. It was an astounding opportunity, a chance to absorb his competitor rather than merely defeating them. This is unexpected, Thorne murmured, passing the documents to Maddox. Mercier does not make offers like this lightly, Maddox said after reviewing the proposal. He sees something in you that resonates with him. The question is, do you want to expand your empire while your current situation is still volatile? Thorne considered the question. The acquisition would transform Blackwell Designs from a successful regional firm to a national powerhouse overnight. It would also require significant focus at a time when his personal life remained in turmoil. Set up a meeting with Mercier, Thorne decided. I want to hear his full thinking before committing. As Maddox made the arrangements, Thorne's phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email from Ren with a subject line that simply read, confirmed. The message contained surveillance photographs of Valerie entering an upscale law firm known for representing high-profile clients in criminal matters, followed by images of her meeting with a silver-haired man Thorne recognized as Barrett Crane, a notoriously aggressive attorney who specialized in flipping clients to testify against bigger targets in exchange for immunity or reduced charges. "Valerie's making her move," Thorne said, showing Maddox the images. "She's going to try to save herself by offering up Perry and possibly my father." Maddox studied the photos with a frown. "This complicates things. Crane is effective. If Valerie did not know the full extent of the corporate espionage, she might be able to position herself as a peripheral figure caught between warring family members." "She knew," Thorne said flatly. "The gallery was used to launder information as well as to provide meeting locations. The exhibition was designed partly to showcase Perry's architectural insights stolen directly from my firm's confidential projects. We need to get ahead of this," Maddox decided. "I'll contact the prosecutor's office immediately. We have more than enough evidence to demonstrate Valerie's complicity. The question is whether to use it now or hold it as leverage." Before Thorne could respond, his phone rang. A call from Adelaide Knox. "Thorne?" Adelaide's normally calm voice sounded strained. "Lily wants to see you. Now." "Valerie showed up at my office demanding to see her. When I refused based on the court order, she became unpleasant. Security removed her, but Lily overheard everything. She's asking questions I think only you should answer." "I'm on my way," Thorne said, already standing as he left Maddox's office. Thorne felt the weight of what he had set in motion. The destruction of Perry and Valerie's schemes had been necessary and justified. But the collateral damage, particularly to Lily, was the one variable he could not fully control. Despite his careful planning, the human element remained unpredictable. What he did not know was that across town, in a private meeting room at the Federal Detention Center, Perry Blackwell was making his own strategic decisions. And like his brother, Perry had always been willing to sacrifice others to achieve his goals. The game was far from over. 2 weeks after the gala, Thorne arrived at his office to find Ren waiting. Her usual composure was replaced by visible tension. "We have a problem," she said without preamble, following him into his private office. "Perry's made a deal." Thorne set down his briefcase. "What kind of deal?" "The kind that shifts most of the blame to your father." Ren handed him a file. "According to my source in the prosecutor's office, Perry is claiming he was merely following Dominic's instructions. That your father orchestrated the entire corporate espionage operation as a way to test the viability of Monarch as a potential acquisition target." Thorne skimmed the documents, his jaw tightening. "And he expects them to believe this?" "He's provided emails and recorded conversations that appear to support his claim," Ren replied. "Heavily edited and taken out of context, but convincing at first glance. He's painting himself as the dutiful son caught between warring family factions." "And Valerie? That's the other problem. She's corroborating Perry's story, claiming she was manipulated by both Blackwell men. She's positioning herself as a victim who was used as a pawn in a high-stakes corporate chess game." Thorne leaned back, absorbing this development. It was not entirely unexpected. Perry had always been adept at shifting blame, but the specific approach was cunning. By implicating Dominic as the mastermind, Perry was attempting to create reasonable doubt about his own culpability while simultaneously driving a deeper wedge between Thorne and their father. "There's more," Ren continued. "They reclaiming you knew about the plan all along, but turned on them when you realized Dominic was planning to elevate Perry within the company. According to their narrative, the gala exposure was your preemptive strike to maintain control of Blackwell Designs." Thorne's phone rang, Maddox calling with the same information from his own sources. After a brief conversation confirming the details, Thorne ended the call and turned back to Ren. "We need to get ahead of this narrative before it gains traction," he said. "Contact the prosecutor directly. Tell them we have additional evidence they have not seen yet, the unedited versions of Perry's supporting documents, along with the surveillance recordings that show the timeline does not match his claims." As Ren left to make the arrangements, Thorne contemplated this new development. Perry and Valerie were fighting back, using the same tactics of manipulation and misdirection that had characterized their affair. It was a desperate move, but not without strategic merit. If they could create enough confusion about motives and timelines, they might secure more favorable plea deals. More concerning was how this would affect Lily. The narrative Perry and Valerie were constructing painted Thorne as a vindictive corporate tyrant willing to destroy his own family to maintain power. Exactly the kind of story that could damage his relationship with his daughter if she believed it. That afternoon, Thorne met with Silas Mercier at the businessman's private club overlooking Boston Harbor. The elderly magnate listened impassively as Thorne outlined the latest developments. Not surprising, Mercier commented, sipping his scotch. Cornered animals will use whatever weapons they can reach. The question is, how do you intend to neutralize this particular attack? By exposing it for what it is, a fabrication built on fragments of truth, Thorne replied. I have the complete communications, not just the cherry-picked sections Perry is using. When placed in context, they tell a very different story. Mercier nodded thoughtfully. A sound approach for the legal proceedings. But in my experience, family betrayals require responses that go beyond mere legal victories. Your brother and wife are attacking your character, your reputation, and potentially your relationship with your daughter. Those require additional consideration. I'm listening, Thorne said. UV destroyed their immediate plans, but not their capacity to regenerate, Mercier explained. Perry, in particular, has a remarkable ability to reinvent himself. Even if he serves time, his talents and connections could eventually allow him to rebuild. Valerie, too, has her own network in the art world. They may be damaged, but not destroyed. What are you suggesting? Mercier set down his glass. That you consider not just their present, but their future. What will prevent them, once the storm has passed, from attempting to harm you or Lily again? Legal punishments are temporary. Some wounds must be made permanent to ensure they never reopen. The conversation shifted to the Monarch acquisition, but Mercier's words lingered in Thorne's mind. He had focused on dismantling Perry and Valerie's immediate schemes, but had he done enough to ensure they could not threaten his or Lily's well-being in the future? That evening, as Thorne reviewed documents for the Monarch deal, he received an unexpected call from his father's private number. Thorne, Dominic's voice sounded older, more fragile than Thorne had ever heard it. We need to talk. Not over the phone. Come to the hospital tomorrow morning. Room 718. Come alone. Before Thorne could respond, Dominic hung up. Moments later, Maddox called to inform him that the prosecutor had agreed to review their additional evidence and that Perry's deal was on hold pending this review. The timing of Dominic's call seemed suspiciously convenient. The following morning, Thorne arrived at Massachusetts General Hospital, having taken the precaution of recording the entire visit with a discreet device provided by Rern. He found his father sitting up in bed, looking diminished, yet still maintaining the imperious bearing that had defined him throughout Thorne's life. UV made quite a mess, Dominic said by way of greeting. IV exposed one, Thorne corrected, remaining standing rather than taking the chair beside the bed. There's a difference. Dominic waved a hand dismissively. Semantics. The point is, the Blackwell name is now associated with scandal rather than excellence. Decades of reputation building destroyed in a single evening. A reputation built on what, exactly? Thorne asked. Because from where I stand, the Blackwell legacy seems to be one of betrayal disguised as business acumen. Naive as always, Dominic scoffed. Business is betrayal, controlled and channeled toward productive ends. I taught Perry that lesson. You never seem to grasp it. Is that why you conspired with him to undermine my company? To teach me a lesson in productive betrayal? Dominic's eyes narrowed. Perry told you that, and you believed him. He laughed, a harsh sound that dissolved into coughing. I knew about his affair with Valerie, yes. I did not approve, but I did not interfere. As for the corporate espionage, that was all Perry. He may have implied I was involved to give himself credibility with Monarch, but I never sanctioned industrial theft. Then why were you planning to adjust the trust in his favor? Why were you positioning him as the new face of the Blackwell legacy? Dominic sighed, suddenly looking every one of his 80 years. Because he needed it more than you did. UV built something of your own, something substantial. Perry has nothing but his talent and charm. The trust would have given him stability, a foundation to build upon. At my expense, Thorne pointed out. At the expense of someone who could afford the loss, Dominic countered. That's what family does, redistributes resources according to need. Thorne shook his head in disbelief. That's not family. That's simply favoritism with a dash of nepotism. Call it what you will, Dominic said wearily. The fact remains we now all facing destruction because you could not tolerate sharing the spotlight with your brother. This is not about spotlights or sibling rivalry, Thorne said, his voice hardening. This is about Perry and Valerie systematically undermining every aspect of my life, my marriage, my business, my relationship with my daughter. They did not want to share anything. They wanted to take everything. Dominic studied him for a long moment. What do you want, Thorne? Why are you here? You called me, remember? Yes, because despite everything, you re-still my son. And Perry is about to implicate me in serious federal crimes to save himself. I want to know if you are going to stand by and let that happen. The request was breathtaking in its audacity. Dominic was essentially asking Thorne to help protect him from Perry's accusations despite having favored Perry throughout their lives and having planned to reduce Thorne's inheritance. I have the unedited communications, Thorne said carefully. They show that Perry acted independently, though he often implied your approval to add weight to his schemes. I've already provided them to the prosecutor. Relief flickered across Dominic's face. So you've done the right thing. I've done the truthful thing, Thorne corrected. Not for your benefit, but because Perry does not get to escape consequences by fabricating an alternate reality. Dominic nodded slowly. And what happens now? To the family? To Blackwell Designs? Blackwell Designs will continue under my leadership, Thorne said. As for the family, that depends on choices yet to be made. What does that mean? Thorne moved toward the door. It means I have not decided whether the Blackwell name is worth preserving or if it's time to build something new, unburdened by its legacy of conditional loyalty. As he left the hospital, Thorne received a text from Adelaide, Valerie attempting to schedule unsupervised visit with Lily through her attorney, court hearing set for Friday. The pieces continued to move on the board. Perry trying to implicate Dominic. Valerie seeking access to Lily, potentially to influence her perception of events. Dominic attempting to position himself as a victim of Perry's machinations rather than a willing participant. It was time for Thorne to make his final moves. Ones that would ensure not just a temporary victory but a permanent resolution. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when Thorne arrived for Valerie's emergency hearing regarding visitation rights. The scandal had captivated Boston's social circles, combining elements of corporate intrigue, family betrayal, and high society downfall into an irresistible narrative. Cameras flashed as Thorne made his way inside, Maddox at his side. In the courtroom, Valerie sat with Barrett Crane, and another attorney Thorne did not recognize. She was dressed conservatively in a navy suit, her hair pulled back, the picture of a concerned mother unfairly separated from her child. When their eyes met, Valerie quickly looked away, focusing intently on the papers before her. Judge Eleanor Hargrove, known for her no-nonsense approach to family court matters, entered and called the hearing to order. Crane immediately launched into an impassioned plea, portraying Valerie as a loving mother caught in the crossfire of a vindictive husband's corporate vendetta. My client acknowledges that her personal choices have caused distress, Crane argued smoothly. But these choices have no bearing on her abilities as a mother. Mr. Blackwell is using his financial and legal resources to punish Ms. Blackwell by restricting access to their daughter, who desperately misses her mother. Maddox countered with meticulous precision, presenting evidence from Dr. Knox about Lily's emotional state and the potential harm of unsupervised visits, while Valerie remained under investigation. Furthermore, Maddox added, Ms. Blackwell violated the existing court order by attempting to remove Lily from Dr. Knox's care without authorization. This demonstrates a concerning disregard for legal boundaries and calls into question her judgment regarding her daughter's well-being. Judge Hargrove listened to both arguments before addressing Valerie directly. Ms. Blackwell, this court's primary concern is the welfare of your daughter. While I understand your desire for unrestricted access, the circumstances surrounding this case require caution. Dr. Knox's assessment indicates that Lily is experiencing significant emotional trauma related to recent events. Valerie leaned forward. Your Honor, I would never do anything to harm my daughter. I am simply asking for the opportunity to maintain our relationship during this difficult time without the presence of a supervisor who reports directly to my husband. That supervisor is a licensed child psychologist, Judge Hargrove pointed out, not merely an agent of Mr. Blackwell. Her role is to ensure Lily's emotional well-being during visits. Then perhaps a different, neutral supervisor could be appointed, Crane suggested. Thorne had remained silent throughout the exchange, but now he stood. Your Honor, if I may address the court? Judge Hargrove nodded. Briefly, Mr. Blackwell. I have no desire to sever the relationship between my daughter and her mother, Thorne said, his voice steady. My only concern is Lily's well-being. To that end, I've consulted with 3 independent child psychologists who all recommend maintaining the current visitation arrangement until the criminal investigations involving Ms. Blackwell are resolved and Lily has had more time to process recent events. He handed documents to the court officer, who passed them to Judge Hargrove. These assessments were conducted without any input from Dr. Knox or myself to ensure objectivity. Judge Hargrove reviewed the documents thoughtfully before looking up. Ms. Blackwell, I understand your frustration, but these recommendations are consistent and compelling. I'm denying your request for unsupervised visitation at this time. Valerie's composure cracked. This is absurd. He's manipulating everything. The evidence, the experts, even our daughter. Thorne has systematically destroyed my life because I had the audacity to fall in love with someone else instead of staying in our hollow marriage. Ms. Blackwell, Judge Hargrove warned. This outburst is not helping your case. What case? Valerie laughed bitterly. He's already decided the outcome. Just like he decided to humiliate me publicly rather than handle our marriage ending like a civilized person. Ask him about Silas Mercier. Ask him what deal they made to orchestrate my destruction. Judge Hargrove banged her gavel. That's enough, Ms. Blackwell. This hearing is not about your marriage or Mr. Blackwell's business associations. It is solely about what's best for your daughter at this moment. She turned to Thorne. Mr. Blackwell, the court appreciates your concern for your daughter's well-being. However, I want to be clear that these arrangements are temporary. Once the criminal matters are resolved, we will revisit the visitation schedule with the expectation of progressing toward more normalized parent-child interactions. I understand, Your Honor, Thorne replied. That has always been my intention. As the hearing concluded, Thorne noticed a young woman at the back of the courtroom taking notes. Not a reporter, based on her demeanor and the way she studied Valerie with particular intensity. Something about her seemed vaguely familiar, though Thorne could not place her. Outside the courthouse, as reporters clamored for statements, Thorne spotted the young woman again, now on her phone, speaking urgently while watching Valerie and her attorneys exit the building. Curious, Thorne directed Maddox to proceed to the car while he took a slight detour that brought him within earshot of the woman. Just like you said she would. Complete meltdown in front of the judge. No, he maintained perfect composure. Yes, I'll send the recording right away, Nora. The name Nora triggered Thorne's memory. Nora Voss, the director of the Atherton Gallery in New York, which had been Valerie's dream position before she settled for her current role in Boston. Valerie had interviewed with Voss multiple times over the years, but had always been passed over for what she described as political reasons. The young woman must be Voss's assistant, sent to observe Valerie's court appearance. But why would the director of a prestigious New York gallery care about Valerie's custody hearing? The question lingered as Thorne met with Maddox at their office later that day to discuss developments in Perry's case. The additional evidence they had provided had indeed halted his plea deal, but Perry's legal team was now attempting to suppress key elements of the prosecution's case on technical grounds. They re-arguing that the surveillance evidence was obtained illegally, Maddox explained, despite the fact that all recordings were made in public places or in Blackwell Design's offices, where there is no expectation of privacy. How likely are they to succeed? Thorne asked. Unlikely, but it's buying them time. Meanwhile, Perry's PR team is working overtime, positioning him as a misunderstood artist caught in a corporate power struggle. They refocusing on his humanitarian work, suggesting that the charges against him are meant to silence his advocacy. Thorne shook his head in grudging admiration. Perry had always been skilled at image management, turning even his most self-serving actions into narratives of noble sacrifice or artistic integrity. There's something else, Maddox added. Dominic has revised his will and trust allocations. Cutting me out entirely? Thorne guessed. Quite the opposite. He's named you as his sole heir and the executor of his estate. Thorne stared at Maddox in disbelief. When did this happen? The paperwork was finalized yesterday, after your hospital visit. He also provided a sworn affidavit absolving you of any wrongdoing in the exposure of Perry's activities, and confirming that he had no knowledge of or involvement in the corporate espionage. This unexpected development added yet another layer of complexity to the situation. Was Dominic genuinely attempting to make amends? Or was this another strategic move in the ongoing Blackwell family chess match? Before Thorne could consider the implications further, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Information about Valerie's next move. Meet at Mercier's restaurant. Private room. 7 p.m. Envy. Nora Voss. The coincidence was too precise to ignore. That evening, Thorne arrived at Mercier's to find not only Nora Voss waiting in the private dining room, but also Silas Mercier himself. Voss, a sharp-featured woman in her 50s with silver-streaked black hair, rose to greet him. Mr. Blackwell, thank you for coming. I believe we have mutual interests regarding Valerie Crawford, or Blackwell, as she is currently known. Thorne accepted the seat offered. I was not aware we had any connection at all, Miss Voss. We did not, until your wife attempted to leverage her relationship with Perry to secure a position at my gallery. Voss replied. A position that would have given her access to our client list, artist contracts, and acquisition strategies. Information she planned to use to establish a competing gallery with Perry once his exhibition elevated both their profiles. How do you know this? Thorne asked. Voss nodded to her assistant, who placed a tablet on the table and played a recording of Valerie speaking to Perry about their post-exhibition plans. The conversation explicitly detailed their intention to use the Atherton Gallery's proprietary information to rapidly establish themselves in the New York art scene. This recording was made during a private dinner at my restaurant, Mercier explained. Ms. Voss is an old friend who I believe should be aware of potential industrial espionage in her field. So Valerie and Perry were not just targeting my business, Thorne realized. They were planning to use the same tactics in the art world. Precisely, Voss confirmed. When your exposure of their activities made the news, I recognized the pattern immediately. I've been monitoring the situation ever since, concerned that if they somehow evaded serious consequences for their actions against you, they would simply pivot to their art world scheme. Which brings us to why we're here, Mercier interjected. Ms. Voss has discovered that despite her current legal troubles, Valerie has been in contact with several of Atherton's artists and clients, positioning herself as a victim of your corporate machinations and suggesting that once the misunderstanding is cleared up, she'll be establishing a new gallery venture. She is still moving forward with their plan, Thorne said, unsurprised even with Perry facing criminal charges. Adaptability is one of Valerie's strengths, Voss noted. She modified the narrative to cast Perry as a sacrificial figure whose vision she'll carry forward. Several influential collectors who appreciate a dramatic backstory are already expressing interest. What do you want from me? Thorne asked directly. An alliance, Voss replied. I want to ensure Valerie cannot establish herself in the art world by exploiting stolen relationships and information. You want to protect yourself and your daughter from her future machinations. Together, we can accomplish both objectives. The conversation that followed outlined a coordinated approach that would effectively close every door Valerie might try to open in both the business and art worlds. By the time Thorne left the restaurant, the final pieces of his strategy had fallen into place, not just to win the current battle, but to secure a definitive victory in the war Perry and Valerie had initiated. The following day, as Perry appeared in court for a procedural hearing, Thorne met with the prosecutor handling the case, accompanied by Maddox and, surprisingly, his father. Dominic, against medical advice, had insisted on attending to provide direct testimony about his lack of involvement in Perry's schemes. I enabled him in many ways, Dominic admitted to the prosecutor. I favored him, made excuses for his failures, and rewarded his charm rather than his character. But I never authorized or encouraged him to commit corporate theft or fraud. That was entirely his own initiative. The prosecutor, initially skeptical of this sudden paternal cooperation, was convinced by the combination of Dominic's testimony, the unedited communications Thorne had provided, and new evidence from Monarch Group executives who had turned on Perry to save themselves. As they left the prosecutor's office, Dominic turned to Thorne. I've made many mistakes with you and Perry, different mistakes, but equally damaging. With you, I was too demanding, too quick to criticism, too slow to acknowledge your achievements. With Perry, I was too indulgent, too willing to believe his excuses, too eager to see what I wanted to see. Why are you telling me this now? Thorne asked. Because at 80, facing my own mortality and the destruction of the family I thought I was building, I finally recognized my role in creating this situation, Dominic replied. I do not expect forgiveness, Thorne. But I wanted you to know that I see clearly now what I was blind to before. It was as close to an apology as Dominic Blackwell had ever offered and likely ever would. Thorne accepted it with a nod, neither rejecting the olive branch nor embracing it fully. Some wounds were too deep for simple reconciliation, but perhaps they could establish a new, more honest relationship moving forward. That evening, as Thorne reviewed the final paperwork for the Monarch acquisition, he received a call from Rin. Her voice was tight with urgency. Valerie was just spotted entering the building where Dr. Knox has her office. She does not have a scheduled visitation today. Thorne was already grabbing his keys. Call security immediately. I'm on my way. The final confrontation was about to begin. Thorne arrived at Adelaide Knox's office building to find security personnel already outside Dr. Knox's suite. The lead guard, a former police officer named Rivera, approached as Thorne exited the elevator. Ms. Blackwell arrived approximately 15 minutes ago, Rivera reported. Dr. Knox refused her entry and activated the silent alarm. Ms. Blackwell became agitated but remained in the reception area. We monitored the situation via security cameras but did not intervene initially as there was no direct threat. And now? Thorne asked, noting the tension in Rivera's posture. 5 minutes ago, Ms. Blackwell claimed to receive a phone call and stepped into the stairwell, presumably for privacy. She has not returned or exited the building. Thorne's blood ran cold. Where's Lily? In Dr. Knox's inner office with the door locked. We've confirmed visual contact through the security system. She is safe. Thorne nodded, his mind racing through the building's layout. The stairwell Valerie had entered provided access to multiple floors, including the roof and a service corridor that connected to Dr. Knox's suite through a rarely used secondary entrance. Show me the security feed, Thorne demanded. Rivera led him to a small monitoring station where multiple screens displayed various areas of the building. The feed from Dr. Knox's inner office showed Lily reading quietly while Adelaide worked at her desk. The reception area was empty except for Adelaide's assistant. The stairwell cameras showed no sign of Valerie. Check the service corridor, Thorne instructed. Rivera switched feeds, revealing a dimly lit hallway and the back of a figure moving stealthily toward the secondary entrance to Dr. Knox's suite. That door is secured, right? Thorne asked urgently. It should be, Rivera confirmed, already speaking into his radio to alert his team. But it's an older system not connected to the main security network. Thorne was already moving, taking the stairs 2 at a time to reach the service level. As he emerged into the corridor, he heard a commotion ahead, raised voices, a door slamming, and then Adelaide's voice, sharp with alarm. He rounded the corner to find Valerie struggling with a security guard while attempting to reach the inner office where Lily was now visible through the glass partition, her face a mask of confusion and fear. Lily! Valerie called out, her voice cracking with desperation. Lily, tell them you want to see me. Tell them your father is keeping us apart. The guard managed to restrain Valerie as Thorne approached. Upon seeing him, Valerie's expression contorted with rage. You, she spat. You've turned everyone against me. Even my own daughter. What lies have you been telling her? The only person who's lied to Lily is you, Thorne replied calmly, positioning himself between Valerie and the inner office door. And now you violated a court order, trespassed, and potentially endangered our daughter. Endangered? Valerie laughed bitterly. I'm her mother. I just wanted to see her without your spies watching our every interaction. Adelaide had emerged from the inner office, keeping Lily safely inside. Valerie, this is not helping anyone, least of all Lily. She can see and hear everything that's happening right now. Valerie's gaze shifted to the glass partition where Lily stood watching, tears streaming down her face. For a moment, something like shame flickered across Valerie's features, quickly replaced by renewed determination. Lily baby, I'm fighting for us, she called out. Your father is trying to keep us apart because he's angry with me. But I never stopped loving you. Lily shook her head slowly, backing away from the glass. The rejection seemed to break something in Valerie. She sagged in the security guard's grip, her composure finally shattering completely. You've won, she said to Thorne, her voice hollow. You've taken everything, my marriage, my career, my reputation, and now my daughter. Are you satisfied? Thorne studied the woman he had once loved, now reduced to a desperate, cornered adversary. This was never about winning, Valerie. It was about protecting what you and Perry tried to destroy. We just wanted a chance, Valerie whispered. A chance at happiness, at the life we deserved. At my expense, Thorne reminded her. And at Lily's. Police officers arrived, summoned by Rivera when the situation escalated. As they took custody of Valerie, reading her rights and citing violations of the restraining order, trespassing, and attempted custodial interference, Thorne turned his attention to Lily. Adelaide had brought her into the reception area now that Valerie had been removed. Lily stood uncertainly, her young face bearing the weight of witnessing yet another traumatic confrontation between her parents. I'm sorry you had to see that, Thorne said gently, kneeling to meet her at eye level. Your mom is going through a difficult time right now. She was not always like this, was she? Lily said quietly. The question caught Thorne off guard with its perceptiveness. No, he answered honestly. There was a time when your mom was kind and thoughtful. People change, sometimes in ways we do not expect or understand. Like Uncle Perry. Thorne nodded. Like Uncle Perry. Are you going to change too? Lily asked, the fear evident in her voice. Thorne took her hands in his. I'm always going to be your dad. And I'm always going to put you first. That's a promise I will never break. Some things might change around us, but that never will. Lily considered this before wrapping her arms around his neck in a tight hug. I believe you, she whispered. In the days that followed, the final acts of the drama played out across Boston's legal and social landscape. Perry, unable to shift the bulk of the blame to Dominic and faced with overwhelming evidence, accepted a plea deal that included significant prison time and financial restitution. The agreement required his full cooperation in the ongoing investigation, effectively ending any remaining loyalty between the brothers. Valerie's South violation of the court order resulted in the complete loss of visitation privileges pending completion of psychiatric evaluation and treatment. The incident, combined with evidence provided by Nora Voss regarding her attempted exploitation of gallery resources, effectively blacklisted her from the art world she had so desperately wanted to conquer. Dominic, his health deteriorating rapidly following the stress of recent events, formalized his reconciliation with Thorne through a series of legal documents that not only secured Thorne's control of the family assets, but included a public statement acknowledging his son's integrity and business acumen. It was not the warm father-son relationship Thorne had once craved, but it represented a truth that had been denied for too long. In the end, Thorne finally stood as the unchallenged leader of Blackwell Designs, with Lily safe at his side and a future he could build on his own terms. The Monarch acquisition proceeded smoothly, transforming Blackwell Designs into the dominant architectural firm in the Northeast practically overnight. Silas Mercier, true to his reputation for backing winners, provided both financial support and strategic guidance during the transition. 6 months after the Mercier Gala that had triggered the cascade of revelations and consequences, Thorne stood at the window of his newly expanded office, watching his workers install the updated company signage. Blackwell Architectural Group. The name maintained the family legacy while signaling a new beginning, one built on Thorne's terms. His phone buzzed with a text from Adelaide. Lily got an A on her science project. She's asking if you'll be home for dinner to celebrate. Thorne smiled, typing back, would not miss it. Tell her I am bringing ice cream. As he prepared to leave for the day, Maddox arrived with final updates on the legal proceedings. Perry had begun serving his sentence at a federal prison in Pennsylvania. Valerie had relocated to Chicago after completing her mandated treatment, maintaining minimal and strictly supervised contact with Lily via monthly video calls. Dominic, now in hospice care, had days rather than weeks remaining. It's over, Maddox concluded. You've weathered the storm. Thorne considered this as he gathered his things. Not over, he corrected. Just entering a new phase. There will always be challenges, threats, opportunities. The difference is in how we approach them. And how will you approach them? Maddox asked, curious about his friend's state of mind after the tumultuous events that had redefined his life. Thorne's expression hardened momentarily, revealing the steely resolve that had allowed him to systematically dismantle those who had betrayed him with clear eyes and no illusions. Those who stand with me will find me loyal to the end. Those who stand against me. He let the thought hang unfinished, its conclusion self-evident. As he drove home to celebrate his daughter's achievement, Thorne reflected on the lessons of the past year. He had lost a wife, a brother, and in many ways a father. But he had preserved what mattered most: his daughter's well-being, his professional legacy, and his own integrity. The price had been high, but the alternative, allowing Perry and Valerie's betrayal to succeed, would have cost infinitely more. That evening, as he watched Lily enthusiastically explain her science project, her eyes bright with the joy that had been absent for so long, Thorne knew he had made the right choice. Some might view his methods as ruthless, his retribution as excessive, but those people had not faced the systematic destruction of everything they had built and everyone they loved. In the end, Perry and Valerie had underestimated the man they sought to destroy, and Thorne Blackwell, at last, found peace in the life he had rebuilt for himself and for Lily. They had mistaken his patience for weakness, his strategic thinking for indecision, his love for his daughter as a vulnerability to be exploited rather than a strength to be reckoned with. They had forgotten, or perhaps never truly understood, the fundamental truth that Thorne had always lived by: loyalty was everything, betrayal was unforgivable, and when forced to fight, he would wage war without mercy or restraint. As Lily finished her presentation with a proud flourish, Thorne applauded, his heart full despite, or perhaps because of, the hard-won wisdom of the past year. The future stretched before them, uncertain but unquestionably theirs to shape. Whatever it might bring, Thorne Blackwell was ready, his resolve tempered by fire, his priorities clearer than they had ever been. Some prices were worth paying, some lessons worth learning, and some victories worth any cost to achieve.